right, we are going to go ahead and get started just to honor everybody's time. It's a couple minutes after 3 o'clock. And we are really excited at the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals and to be partnering with the student side of our organization. Some of you might not realize that MASSP has a student side, which is the Michigan Association of Student Councils and National Honor Societies. And so we have a long history of really successful, high-quality student programming. And so we're really looking forward to having this opportunity, especially during a pandemic, when students are down looking for ways to engage and to find opportunities to connect with other students and with their school. And we think esports is a perfect opportunity and venue to be able to do that. So with us today, we're very fortunate to have Delane Parnell, who is the founder and owner of PlayVS. And it's really cool because Delane happens to be from Michigan and from Detroit. So that makes it extra exciting for the owner of the company and the founder to be able to come and be with us today and welcome Michigan to PlayVS. So Delane, I thought you might want to share a few words with everybody.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. Look, as Wendy mentioned, I was born and raised in Detroit, in the Jeffries Projects in Detroit. Went to Michigan public schools my entire life. Graduated from Southfield High School. We're super excited. It's been a long time coming to have Michigan be a state in which we operate an esports league. So we're all really excited about that at the company. Most of our company, a good percentage, I would say, of our company, is people from Detroit or Michigan or have some connection. And most of our executive team actually either went to Michigan or is from Michigan. And so, a lot of Michigan DNA inside of PlayVS. And so this is an extremely meaningful partnership for us. We're really excited about, servicing Michigan students and supporting Michigan coaches and just being of service to, the entire esports community within Michigan. However, I can be helpful. Feel free to reach out, Delane at playversus.com. And then, obviously you're in good hands with the other folks on the call who'll be leading the conversation today. So just wanted to jump on, say hello to everyone, talk about how excited I am about this partnership. This is the first time I've jumped on for one of these state calls. And so, go blue, and love for Michigan as well. So super excited to be working with all of you. Feel free to reach out if you ever need anything.
Thank you very much, Delane. Anyone on the call does not know me. My name is Matt Alley. I'm director of the Michigan Association of Student Councils and Honor Society. Like Wendy mentioned, I operate the student side of the house. Like Delane said, like Wendy said, we're super excited to be involved in esports. I know how excited PlayVS is to be involved with Michigan because when his staff and I were emailing back and forth to set up this webinar, they said, Delane's going to be on the call, and they used exclamation point. So I don't think he's kidding when he says that this is the first state call that he's had a chance to get it on. And it shows their dedication to Michigan students and this programming. With that said, I want to introduce Christopher Mondu. Christopher Mondu is Michigan's marketing manager, and he's going to be a vital resource for us as we start to open up this journey for Michigan students to be involved in esports. Chris?
Thanks, Matt. Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so thrilled to be with you here today. As Matt mentioned, my name is Christopher Mondu, and I'm your market manager for the great state of Michigan. We have a terrific webinar in store for you today, and it's going to be my pleasure to introduce your host, Adrian Risley. Adrian is one of the earliest employees at PlayVS. He joined in 2018. Adrian has been a esports player and coach for the last 20 years before the nomenclature even existed. Prior to joining PlayVS, he spent 10 years working as an IT director at various public schools in the Arkansas public school system. He's a passionate player, coach, and promoter of esports. So today, Adrian's going to walk us through three things: why esports are growing in popularity in the education space, what opportunities esports provide students with, and an overview of the PlayVS platform and how to get started. So with that, Adrian, take it away.
All right, thanks Mondu, and everyone else here, Wendy, Matt, and team for bringing us on. I'm excited to get started. I will warn you all that this will be one of the speediest runs I've ever had for this presentation. So thanks to Wendy for recording it and it being available later. But I will try to be as entertaining and informational as I can as we take off. So in general, here we go. So first, I like to draw a distinction just between video games themselves and esports. It's important to note that yes, all esports are video games, but not all video games are esports. Here at PlayVS, we have 5 titles that we currently operate leagues for. And we are growing that number steadily over the next few years and probably really forever. We'll be adding different titles in, but there's a few things that go into what makes a good esport. A lot of times it's very separate from what you see in the recreational gameplay that video games have innately. Obviously, they're very popular at home. There's a lot of personal one-on-one kind of enjoyment with video games. They're very recreational. And oftentimes, really for the last, since their existence, they've been widely, the majority of players, it's widely individual focused. Now, esports has certainly been around for a long time, but it's definitely starting to really take hold now as gamers are getting older and older and starting to bring their hobby and some of their favorite things that they enjoy as an individual into the public spaces of education and online and through the internet. So esports is essentially making a competitive and structured environment on many team-based games to provide a lot of the benefits that you see in traditional sports, and we'll get into some of that here just a little bit later. Now, I am an only child, so I love talking about myself, and that's where we're going to crack this egg open. I'm a former CTO, as Chris said, and technology director within public education. I worked for about 10 years in the state of Arkansas. My wife was a teacher. I was an esports coach. I was a head volleyball coach and an after-school programs director. I was always very passionate about getting kids engaged and involved. And part of the reason for that is because of what educators did for me. I was a struggling student. In the year 2000, I was smart, sure, but not that motivated when it came to schoolwork. However, I really, really enjoyed playing video games at that time. And I got the bright idea that, hey, I'll convince my parents to let my friends come over and we'll actually plug a bunch of computers in together. You'll see that picture, a live action shot in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. I'm thankful today that I was the one taking it, not in it, so you can't draw direct comparisons to just how bald I've gotten over the years. But the point is that's the real shot of when an educator stepped into my life and changed it forever. Nobody in my family had been to college. We certainly didn't know how to configure computers to talk to each other. And when we plugged everything in, it didn't work. Now, I was nerdy enough on a Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. to know that, one, my technology director was still going to be at the school, and two, I knew his extension. So I called up at the school. He said he would help us out. We drove to the school on a Friday. He taught me how to network computers together, how to actually configure the IP addresses within the machines so that they could communicate. Back then, especially where I'm from, you didn't have home routers where you could just plug everything in and it just worked. I went back home. I could care less about what he did for me in that moment, but I began setting up the network, and that led into a wonderful weekend of games with my friends. But I went on to host LAN parties and take over homes of our parents, 20 and 30 students deep at times, throughout my high school career, organizing play, upgrading computers, and upgrading networks. I floundered around in college. I quit after my first year. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I eventually decided, hey, I know a little bit about technology thanks to these LAN parties in high school. I'll apply to be a computer technician. Lo and behold, my boss asked if I liked the game because that's the only thing that was on my resume during the interview. And I said, yes, I do. Do you like to lose? He challenged me for a game on the spot. I ended up winning, thankfully. I don't think it was for my job, but I'm sure he wouldn't tell me either way. But he did hire me. He gave me more money than planned. I went on to be a network engineer. I actually got my Cisco certifications so that we could resell Cisco products. And eventually began running cable in the year 2010 for the same high school that actually gave me these skills as that high school was going with a one-to-one program with Apple computers at the time. I then became the technology director of that school, the CTO of another school. Everything else is history. I actually completed my bachelor's degree in general information technology online while going through that process, finishing it in the year 2017 as I was the CTO already at that point. I say that whole story to just let you understand that that's what happened in my life with no one trying. I fell down and somehow landed clean. I didn't land in the mud. However, we want to package this up and allow esports to be the doorway to open successful pathways for students in general, so that we can see more and more stories like this of a student that's on the fringe, but we pull them back in. I'm going to touch on student engagement in just a minute, but I promise we are done talking about me, at least for the next 5 minutes. So this is the most important, probably bullet point that you can take away from esports and education, and this is why we're here discussing it today. Student achievement, I like to put at the very top of the list because I think this is underrated and certainly not talked about enough. In education, I purchased millions of dollars worth of equipment, technology, teaching formulas and pedagogies, and all kinds of different ways to increase student achievement over the years. And there was always a debate in education. Well, is this the latest new fad? Is this the latest new device? Was this really worth it? You never know. Some stuff comes in, some stuff goes out. And some people might think that of esports, is this new? Is this a new fad? Is this going to go away? Does it actually produce the results that we want as educators? And I'm here to tell you, yes, it actually does. Just in the short time that I did it, I saw it with my students. But later, I'm actually from Arkansas, and AAA, the state association there, ran a study in the year 2019 of all of the students that were active in AAA activities across the state. And they compared those students' GPAs, behavior, attendance with the average student across the state. And on all metrics, every student that was engaged through activities at their school performed better than the average student that did not. And so certainly my coined phrase for you to keep in mind today is that if you increase student engagement, you will increase student achievement. And this is one of the lowest hanging fruit that you could possibly get your hands on that is data driven and proven to actually help students. We don't have time today to go over all of the coach stories and the parent stories and the grandparent stories that we've received over the last couple of years, but it is very evident once you begin offering this to students and watching them come out of their shell and really start to succeed, not only in esports, but in the classroom as well. Secondly, I think it's important to talk about scholarships. Now, that's going to, just like traditional sports, that's going to impact your top 1% and 2% of players. I think it's extremely important and mindful for administrators and parents to fully understand that space, and you'll hear more about that space, the collegiate space, not only from PlayVS, but also our friends there in Michigan, as we continue to kind of draw lines and bridge the gaps between esports programs at the high school level and esports programs at the collegiate level. So we'll touch on scholarships here in just a second on another slide. I'd also like to hit on careers. I'll follow up on the next slide with that as well. Leadership and teamwork are obvious takeaways, just the same type of skills that you see in traditional sports: conflict management, being a leader, being on a team, being dedicated to something at your school. Those are all things that come into that competitive, structured environment. It doesn't really matter necessarily what sport or what activity it is. If there's structure around it, you're producing those life skills that students need, and that's why we have extracurricular activities in the first place. So those are some obvious ones. And I think another little unknown or less obvious impact that this is going to have on your students is digital citizenship. Now, as a former CTO, I know it's important for E-rate funding that every student receives some type of training in digital citizenship. It was always a worry and something that I had to take care of in my districts. I know that it's on the minds of administrators kind of across the nation, especially in this digital world, especially this year where we're spending most of our time online. So I can't tell you how true it is that when you have a competitive virtual environment, digital citizenship skills will absolutely be necessary. Now, the benefit of jumping into the PlayVS platform is that we schedule matches only against other PlayVS verified schools and coaches. So we actually have an extremely low amount of discipline issues nationally because we have a nice report button. Everybody's in a nice closed environment. And if there is ever something that comes up, we're able to reach out to an actual coach in an actual school and start discussing the issue. We have an entire code of conduct that's based around our leagues and really a zero tolerance rule for unsportsmanlike conduct. I played basketball in high school, and certainly things were said on the court that nobody heard but me and the other players. But in esports and digitally, you can't type anything that everyone else isn't already seeing. And our software automatically checks to make sure that your teammates are in the game with you and your opponent's teammates are in the game with you. And if we ever see an account within our system that does not belong to one of our players or schools, we flag that and we make sure we take care of it. So in general, it's a nice buttoned up platform and system, and you as a coach can really hit home the digital citizenship skills as you teach students not only how to win, but how to lose. All right, so a quick quote here from one of our friends in Connecticut. Esports has given me a chance to come out of my shell, make friends through one of my favorite pastimes. It has also brought me the confidence in my abilities that I hope will continue to grow. When we surveyed some of our students in previous seasons, one of the questions we asked was, what is the number one best thing that you received or that you enjoyed about your esports program? And I believe it landed on 83% as the majority answer being, I found a place where I belong. They found a community. Again, that ties back into the student achievement. More than half of our students in that same survey actually had never participated or engaged in a high school activity at all. So they were excited and for the first time finally felt like they were a part of something. Again, reaching back to any student that wants to come to school is going to do better than a student that does not. All right, so let's touch on the careers and the scholarships portion. I think this is an extremely useful chart. Today, we're looking at the global games market annual revenue. So globally, how much money is flowing through the games market today? As you'll see on the chart, there's a steady incline, so we are nowhere near the plateau that will happen many, many, many years down the road. But today, in 2020, we're sitting around approximately $160 billion a year. Now, as an Arkansas boy, I had no idea what those numbers meant. They were too big for me to comprehend. So I had to do a few Google searches to really wrap my head around that number. The film industry global annual revenue is 40 billion. The music industry is 30 billion. You can combine those two and you still don't equal half of the market that is the global games market. And I think that's an extremely important fact to consider when as educators, we are constantly preparing students for what's to come. Well, this is one of the most underserved markets that we see in vocational programs or in education at all as a possible pathway for students, and we'll tie into some of the careers that you could actually consider. Now, growing up, I was always like, well, I really like game designer. Maybe I like games. I'll be a game designer, and that was kind of a standard thought at the time, and I feel like a lot of probably teachers and students have had those same thoughts. But I want you to expand your mind a little bit more to the size of this industry. One of our partners for a game called Smite is High Res Studios, and I was listening to their previous CEO talk at a conference one time, and he mentioned having 400 to 500 employees and actually having more graphic design and artists on his team than he had engineers and designers. And I took that home with me to be like, there's an art student out there somewhere who's struggling to find motivation at the high school level. If you can be the educator that connects the dot and say, hey, you know what, we just spun up an esports program. Can you help make us a logo? And, if you actually do that, could you also maybe help us edit some videos or some highlight reels for the team? Maybe help us run our social media platform and a Twitter account for the esports team. You can get many, many students engaged into the program that aren't even necessarily players, but find that motivation and that love of gaming to give them resume material straight out of high school. We had one of my favorite stories is a coach that opened up the program to his school, said, hey, we're going to do this. This is what we want to do. Sign this petition if you want to be a part of the esports program. And he had a student approach him in the hall and said, hey, look, coach, I don't want to play or anything, but I already edit videos for streamers so that they can post those videos on YouTube, and they pay me, via contract. Do you care if I help the esports team out and help you guys kind of edit some of your videos and some of your content? And that coach just looked at the student and was like, I have no idea what you just said, but yes, you can do that. And he brought him in. And we have a million stories like that, but I want, again, as an educator, for you to open your mind. I just listed here on the screen a handful of possible career options that really flow into the gaming industry as a whole. And esports, to be clear, is a $1 billion industry today and growing, but it is that doorway to give reasoning, to provide a, let's call it the best project-based learning environment that you would ever ask for as an educator, to get students engaged, involved, and pushing forward. So obviously, another career that we have to touch on is professional players. Professional players today, League of Legends, which is probably the most popular esport in the world today, certainly one of our extremely popular titles here at PlayVS. The average North American professional League of Legends player makes over $100,000 a year, and that's just on contract, not including the millions of dollars that some players make just on sponsorships and branding. Now, tying in the scholarship piece of it, there's a couple of really important facts that you should know. For one, nationally, there are over $15 million worth of scholarships today provided by universities to get students in, but we are excited to now announce this year that PlayVS is actually offering for our players and participating students in our leagues over $600,000 worth of scholarships at the high school level. I think we have a few $100,000 more at the collegiate level as well. So we are really pushing to give you and those students another pathway to success, and that's our end goal. So a couple of testimonials from some of our coaches. Esports is knocking down barriers, setting high standards for inclusion. It also provides opportunities for students to train in a variety of positions, such as team managers, videographers, technical support, streamers, social media managers, and many more. He's obviously one of the ones I was referencing in my previous story. Another one from Kentucky. PlayVS has brought so much joy and excitement to our small Eastern Kentucky town. I want everyone to know how significant an impact you have made in our lives. We have started getting more recognition, and we've even appeared in our local newspaper again last week. Now, I know there's some press going on right now about this partnership and bringing esports to Michigan. Listen, as a former administrator, I would beg for positive press to come to the school. Like, most of the time when the press showed up, I almost wasn't happy about it. But if I could find those golden nuggets to say, hey, come on in, let's invite you in and show you what we're doing and how we're succeeding, this is it. It's an excellent opportunity, and because most of them may or may not be familiar with the space, they'll be like, video games at high school, what? And they'll be very interested to show up and do a piece at your school. Just to give you a quick example of a standard computer lab, usually you can utilize a standard business or engineering lab. A lot of schools already have some of the devices that are required to run some of these games. Now, these games each take their own individual specs. So you may have 30 computers that run one game, but only 5 that run the other. Those are something, we have a lot of documentation and help, and that's something that Chris Mondu can kind of help walk you through as you have questions. We have an entire support team here at PlayVS to help you determine what games you can and can't play, and we work directly with your IT department as well if needed. Just to give you some quick snapshots of some of our former championship winners, we hope to include a nice picture of Michigan and the state championship winners here in the near future. I think it's important to note too, that previous quote talked about inclusion. In 2018, we had 5 different states partner with us to run specific championships for League of Legends, producing 5 different championship teams. 2 of those teams were co-ed and had female starters, and we think it's very important and nice to see that, and we're always looking for more ways to drive inclusion in this space, and it's really exciting to provide a program that really is open to literally everyone at the school. Many students that I know personally, and some amazing success stories that I don't have time to get into, didn't have the physical capabilities to play in traditional sports and succeed through those pathways. This is another way to get their name in the paper, to get recognition for them, a scholarship, to bring motivation to their lives, again, to achieve more success in general. Okay, so for the little bit of time I have left, I'm going to talk about, in general, the overall kind of aspect of what we do here at PlayVS and the format. We will run a fall and a spring season, in which if you enroll teams with us for the fall season, let's say, you will be dedicating that team to play 1 game a week for 8 to 9 weeks. At the end of that 8 to 9 weeks in the regular season, we will actually rank each of those teams throughout the regular season. We'll take the top 16, 32, or maybe even 64 teams into a playoffs tournament, which is a single elimination tournament leading up to a championship. We'll then repeat that process in the spring, starting in February, and really produce, a lot of opportunities for students to get involved. Fall sports students can jump in the spring sports students can jump in the fall. It's a nice mix to really, again, help engage more and more students on the platform in general. You can have an unlimited number of teams in all of the esports that we provide. You're only limited by your coaching resources, how many machines that you have that have access to the games, and how many students are interested. The student one usually isn't a problem. If anything, it's a problem in the other way, that you'll have 100 to 200 show up at your door, and then we have a lot of documentation and help on our end to help kind of bring that to a good number to take off and start with and grow your program and scale it over time. All right, so a couple of high-level steps. As a program administrator, you want to plan what space might be needed and what space you want to use for your esports program, what equipment there is, and what coaches you may have or sponsors you may have that would be over the program and help walk students through and get them engaged, involved, and dedicated. Be that positive sponsor. You need to connect with your IT department if you haven't already. That's step one. Email Chris after the presentation and ask for our IT documentation. It's really helpful and will help give them a good idea as to how to securely set up esports within your school's network and allow the internet filter to let the games through. Recruiting assistant coaches, extra players, team managers, and the like is something else that you want to consider as a program administrator. From the coaching perspective, you will want to invite players and build your teams. You'll want to ensure that their game connections are true on our platform. Basically, students connect their actual game accounts to the PlayVS platform so that, again, we can showcase their real skills throughout the season. And then obviously jumping in and playing. There's no obligation to the seasons. There's no obligation to payment. You can jump in, create an account today, start building teams, start scrimmaging in preparation for jumping into the season. It's important to note that our fall season registration deadline is October 16th. So we actually still have time if you're really interested to get your feet wet this fall and grow into the spring season. Again, reach out to Chris and he'll be able to provide you with the steps. But it first starts with signing up at www.playvs.com. And now I'll quickly speed through the platform. We integrate and partner with each of the games that we offer, which means that we pull in stats for these games. And in turn, a new feature that we've rolled out this year is a player profile in which we will take that player's career through their kind of high school esports pathway, and they will summarize it on their player profile that they can then use and turn over to a collegiate application or possibly a career in the gaming industry later. We have a nice coach dashboard that's constantly being updated with newer, better, and kind of amazing features to help organize remote play. You'll be playing from your school, so there will be no travel involved unless you make it to the championship game. And someday we are able to have a nice in-person championship, which we've done in the past, and look forward to seeing how that grows there in the state. We'll have a nice standings page where you can see exactly where your teams rank. Again, you can have multiple teams, so you may see that your team is ranked, first, 5th and 10th throughout the league. We also do a nice hybrid Swiss scheduling system to ensure that novice teams get placed against novice teams and more veteran teams get placed against veteran teams, making it a very nice experience for all players. Another quick slide just showcasing some player teams and stats. All of this is being updated as well as we speak and coming out with more and more features and ways to view those stats. That is the fastest I've ever gone through the presentation. Thank you. I will turn it back over to you, Mandu and or Wendy or Matt or whoever would like to take it from here.
Yeah, I can jump in real quick, Adrian, as you get some oxygen flowing back into your brain. Great job rolling through that information. We definitely appreciate trying to stick in and out, trying to respect everybody's time for the 30 minutes. The couple of questions that came up was in regards to the deadlines for league registration. Do you know off the top of your head when the deadline is for your spring season? If a team, they might try to get up and running for October, but it might not work out, they can raise that awareness piece and then sign up for the spring. Do you know that spring deadline?
Yeah, we don't have it the exact date set yet, but it will more than likely be mid-February. You will see that exact date coming here in the coming months, but you have plenty of time, before the break, and certainly some time in January to continue pulling all the pieces of the program together to get ready for that season. And our scrimmage tool allows you to easily actually start using the platform, getting used to games and playing so that you are warmed up and ready to go come spring.
And that's awesome. I appreciate it. We'll post some information in the chat where you can get more information from both PlayVS and information specific to our league, our offerings, some information that we've collected. One big component I want to make sure that we clarify for all the potential coaches on the line, all the administrators, is the price. Can you briefly touch on the great deal and discount that PlayVS is offering right now for our new schools getting up and running in Michigan?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, just in general, we like to make sure that the bar is very easy to climb over when you're a brand new program. So we have a number of titles, such as Rocket League, which is an extremely popular title within the space, that are free to jump in and put teams in and play. And then there across the state, which Mandu, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we are looking, if you want to get into this fall season, we're looking at offering $20.20 for the year as a new school jumping into the season. We want to make an extremely kind of aggressive discount for you jumping in so that, again, you can get started, get your feet wet, and grow your program.
And that's $20.20. Is that per player or for the entire school for the entire season?
That's for the entire school for the entire year. That's going to give you access to both seasons, fall and spring, unlimited players. We want you to get in, we want you to grow, and next summer have an a la carte style of options for you to come in, see where you grew, take hold of more offerings and services that we provide, and continue growing your program from there.
And I knew the answer to that question. I just wanted you to say it because it's such an incredible offering for our schools across the state, and we definitely want to get them in. So with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Mandu if he has any final points before I post a couple links, and we can wrap up this introduction to esports in Michigan.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. No, I don't have anything additional to add. Really want to thank Adrian for the terrific walkthrough and everyone here for their time today. We are more than happy to jump on a consultation call, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a half hour. I'm available. Just email me at the address on the screen there. And if you have any further questions about this fall, I'll be happy to answer them. We're coming up on our registration deadline of October 16th. So definitely looking to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak. But I'm available. And yeah, just wanted to say thank you for for the webinar to be held today. So thank you to Matt, and thank you to Maggie, and thank you to Wendy.
I appreciate it. And thanks to the entire PlayVS team for being able to join us on today's call. This concludes our introduction webinar to Esports 101. Like I said, I'm going to post a couple links in the chat. We're going to have Mandu post his email in the chat as well if you have specific questions. I know there's a couple more questions coming through the chat that hopefully Mandu can go back through and answer very quickly. But again, this is a very exciting opportunity, not just for MASSP, but hopefully for you and your students across the state to take advantage of those huge discounts in price and get your teams competing in esports. So again, thank everyone for joining us on this call today. We'll be sure to email out some recap information for everybody on this call. And we'll also post a link to this webinar so you can share it with potential coaches and your students who will be very, very excited to get these programs up and running in your school. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.